What's going on, legends? Welcome back to another video here. This video is going to be a bit of an exciting one. I'm going to be sort of road testing a new product that's going to be hitting the Australian shores very soon. And yeah, I've been given a box of goodies to try out from Fish Organic and Reptile Supplies. And yeah, we're going to do up a little tank for the Egernia Depressa today. So that's right, guys. I've essentially been given a box that's full of bioactive goodies for an arid enclosure from Fish Organics and Reptile Supplies. I've kind of been given this in a sense to be able to kind of like trial it out before it kind of hits the market and just try to give, you know, my honest feedback and things on it. I'll give you my kind of thoughts and impressions along the way. That being said, I'm going to probably just start by setting up this smaller tank that I've got here, which has usually got my Egernia Depressa pair in it. They are currently just hanging out in this tank here in their log that's also pretty much empty, which this kit, if I'm not mistaken, is either meant to set up a 90 by 45 centimeter tank or 120% by 60 centimeter tank. So I'm only going to do some small tanks with it just to kind of trial it out. Also with some small lizards that, you know, I just want to see if the cleanup crew can kind of keep up with how much waste they output, which anybody that owns Egernia out there, they know that they can turn one cricket into 8 poops. It's just magic. They are magic little lizards. That being said, I'm going to flip this camera around so we can have a look at what we actually get inside of this box before I get all excited and ahead of myself and you know, we start popping some stuff together for this enclosure. I've already done the liberty of opening this box. This box isn't necessarily the be-all and, you know, packaging that's going to be long term. There is going to be different packaging. This just happened to be kind of, you know, I'm getting sent a bit of a prototype, if you want to call it that. And yeah, you know, so there's going to be some new packaging hitting the market when these guys come out. But let's have a look in here and just see what you kind of get. So we've got a big bag of pine needles. Now this is awesome because, you know, you get heaps of mulga trees and desert oaks and all sorts in the wild where you get kind of like, you know, in the arid country, you do actually get kind of similar things to pine needles that kind of hit the deck. This could also be kind of used as almost like a dry spinifex sort of looking thing. You could spend some time making little spinifex clumps, maybe clumping some stuff together with zip ties and such, or just kind of like putting a smattering over the base of the enclosure once you've kind of capped it off. So that's pretty cool to see in there. It's something different. Now, something that's pretty standard for Fish Organics bioactive kits, if you got some leaf litter there, so that's good. There's lots of gum leaves and stuff like that in there. There's also some dried bark and such. Yeah, all sorts in there. So that's pretty cool to see. Looks like there's another bag here. Oh, what's this? Okay, so you actually get like a bag of twigs as well, just to kind of help decorate it out. That's awesome. I like the fact that there's like a lot of textures and things that are going to be going on inside of this enclosure. I plan to do my best to kind of use all these materials too, to, you know, really test it out to its fullest. I really like the idea of giving it a proper run, you know, but that's cool. I like having little sticks and twigs and stuff on the ground, you know, it's only natural wherever you go, you find all that sort of stuff. Over here we've got a couple of pieces of essentially fly screen mesh, which this will be used to divide, you know, all the layers of the materials and such. That says 120 on there, so that gives me a thought that that's going to be a 120 by 60 centimeter sort of piece of fly screen. As I said, I'm kind of going to divvy this up probably across a couple of tanks, so, you know, we'll see what goes on there. Now this is cool. So you got your live culture in here too. So there's things like, I can see pill bugs, I can see springtails in there, and then down here too, you've actually got giant mealworms down there as well. So there's a few of those kicking around because apparently they really do well in arid sort of bioactive kits and such. I've never actually really tested them out, to be honest, and it will be interesting to see how long they last in particular because, you know, Egernia do like to nibble at things and they're good little hunters, so we'll see what happens with those. Okay, so under that we've got one of the layers that we're going to be using. So this is, if I'm not mistaken, it's a mix of like coir peat, I believe there's like sand mixed through this, as well as I think there's like a bit of peat moss and stuff like that through there, or thunder peat I think it's called, which, you know, if you are doing plants and things, that's going to kind of help that out in there. I don't think I'm going to do plants personally, just because I never have any luck with plants in, arid enclosures. The other thing about this too is I do have a couple of like little succulents that I've used in gecko enclosures and things like that in the past, but that being said, they are, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe they could be toxic to animals. So geckos I'm not so worried about, but these guys being kind of omnivorous, I don't really want to worry about that. Oh, this is something cool. I hadn't seen this before. So this is a whole bunch of like little granite stones. So, if you had kind of like an enclosure that you were really going to throw a few of these around, just to kind of really make it a bit more pebbly, maybe a bit more gibbery or something like that. That's cool to just kind of add some more textures again. So that's the kind of theme that I'm seeing here. Lots of leaf litter, a lot of twigs, pine needles, some of this granite as well. That's awesome. Okay, and we've got a big bag of sand. Red desert sand. We can't have an arid enclosure, an Australian arid enclosure in particular, without having red desert sand. It'd be silly not to. All my tanks pretty much have sand of some degree in them, and this is going to essentially be a nice cap layer. So that's really cool to see. And then underneath that, we have a bucket load of most Bioactive kit's drainage layers. You've got the hydroponic clay balls, or the, what's it called, Lyrica, something like that. Nice and light drainage material. That's going to give an area for, when you do mist down your enclosures, for the drainage to actually go down into. That's going to be awesome to put across a couple of tanks here too. So I'm going to be honest, looking at that bag, I don't think that would, and looking at the other bags that I've got here, I don't think they're going to span a 120 by 60 centimetre tank. I'd say you'd be kind of capping out at kind of like a 90 by 45 sort of centimetre tank, just judging off the materials that are in here. I will double check with what Corey had said to me, because he did actually tell me, what size tank this was recommended for. So I will double check that. But yeah, it's nonetheless awesome to have kind of like everything all in one kit, and this shouldn't take me long to bang together. So after just having a quick squiz at what you get in this kit, it's pretty cool to kind of see everything all in one spot. I think the premise is essentially you're not just doing two layers. Like a lot of Bioactive tanks, you kind of do your drainage layer, your soil layer, and then you kind of cap it with your other materials and such. But what I'm seeing here is enough to kind of do 3 layers. And I have had a quick chat to Corey, and he recommended you kind of do a drainage layer, essentially like the coir peat layer, so that's where your bugs and stuff are going to hide out. That's where they're going to want to hide because it's more humid in that layer. And then we're going to do a cap layer of sand on top, again using some screen just to try to keep it a bit more divided. So that's what we're going to try here. I might, if I'm going to like put my twist on things, essentially, I think for the sand layer, because the sand's going to be so fine, I think that's going to sieve straight through that. Because you guys know that I use like fish nets essentially to like sieve my sand for like poo and stuff like that when the lizards poop. So I think I might even double that up just to try to make it a little bit less penetrable. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have a play around as we go, but I'm excited nonetheless to put this tank together for the little Egernia Depressa, ready for the season coming up. I'm hoping that these guys are a pair. They've been getting on like a house on fire. Haven't seen any mating, but it would be really cool to see a little baby Depressa in that tank. And it'd be, a big tick off my list of things that I want to do. Let's get to it. Let's have some fun. Let's start putting stuff together. Okay, so I'm going to do my best with filming this enclosure. It's a little bit of a difficult one to kind of see just because of the height of it. I've got a huge tripod out on boxes and stuff, so hopefully you guys can get a reasonable look at it, and I'll give you a whole bunch of close-ups and stuff as I go. As you can see, this tank's just kind of full of garbage at the moment. There's a whole bunch of like hollow logs, fake rocks, all that sort of stuff in there. I was raising Gill and I up in there before I sold them this season. As I said, this one's pretty much empty now. A little bit of, tiny bit of dirt that I need to get out of the bottom, but those Depressa are just hanging in that hollow log there. So we're going to start, of course, with the drainage layer. I'm going to get that bag open and see how much it's going to take to kind of just feel like a decent little layer of this tank. And, as we go, I'll kind of give you my approximations of what this kit's kind of made up to do. All right, I'll start there. Okay, good old trusty ladder here is hopefully keeping me up. Let's pour a bit of this stuff in. We'll see how far we're going to need it. The one thing I will quickly say too, because I'm not like going to be watering this tank as if it was a tropical tank, you're probably not going to need like a super thick drainage layer, because essentially any moisture that does make it down will be minimal, therefore not needing to have like heaps of space underneath it for, you know, evaporating out or drying out of that enclosure essentially. As you guys can see too, my enclosures here are on a Mist King system, so these do get watered 3 times a week. It's a little bit less now. I've basically turned it off during winter because most stuff is kind of brumating. That being said, come summer they'll be getting a lot more humidity pumped into them. So I honestly think that's going to be enough. That's kind of like a little bit more than an inch, probably 3 centimeters thereabouts. Might just put a tiny smidge in more. It's not even half a bag, so I would hazard a guess. Yeah, we're looking at probably like a 90 by 45 centimeter tank. All right, next step, going to be the first layer of fly screen going down for the drainage layer, just to kind of help separate those barriers. I'm going to pull this up and we'll see how much of that is in there. There we go. Okay, that's definitely 45 centimeters like across. So if I hold that up to that tank, it's like almost perfectly 45 centimeters. I can just see that by eyeballing it. But length is 1.2 meters for sure. It's going to be longer than 2 tanks. Yeah, almost 3 tanks. So I'd go out on a limb to say Corey's essentially made this, you know, if I haven't already put it down here, because I should have checked my messages. It's made for a 120 by 45 centimeter tank, I'd say, this kit. So anyway, that gives us a good kind of ballpark as to where that kind of lands. Yeah, I might just kind of cut this down to 45 centimeters for this layer, because I don't mind like springtails and things being able to crawl into the drainage layer if need be, if they need to get a bit of hydration or whatever goes down there. And not much of that stuff's going to end up passing there, like the coir peat mix sort of stuff. So yeah, we'll get the scissors out. Okay, there we go. So that's there, ready to get kind of like our humidity layer in there. So, you know, where the live cultures and stuff are going to hang out, all the little bugs that are going to be so good at cleaning the poop from these Egernia, I hope, because yeah, they've got a challenge on their hands, I'll give them that. So we're going to pop this in now. And again, I want to kind of see how far I think I need to push this to really, oh, you know what? I think, yep, I'm doing it. I'm putting that whole bag in there. So my first thought on that and why I did that was just to see how far it went. And I know that we're going for an arid enclosure here, but if we're going to be doing bioactive critters and, you know, all the good little bugs to kind of help clean out my enclosure, I want those guys to thrive, right? Because at the end of the day, if it's less poop for me to clean, brilliant. But that being said, like, that's a pretty thin layer there. It's not like this is a good size layer, but I think to give them the best shot of survival, they're going to need that sort of depth. So I'm going to leave that there. And like the whole, again, like I'll keep reiterating this. This is kind of like a trial run. Corey wanted my honest opinion on what we see here. The reason that I'm doing this video too is essentially to try to get honest opinions, your thoughts and stuff like that too, over to Corey, see what you guys think about this kind of kit. And, you know, if we can kind of get some feedback and he can tweak a few things and stuff like that, brilliant. You know, they can kind of come up with a better product to put on the market at the end of the day. So I think personally, if that's made for a 120 centimeter kit or tank, you're going to need way more than that amount of sand and coir peat in there to make a half decent sort of like humidity layer. Otherwise it's going to be like, you know, 10 centimeters or 10 mil thick, 15 mil thick across its tank that size, and I don't know if that's going to be enough. But that being said, let's just pop in the Bioculture now. I want to see what crawls out of this little box, because they're going to go down in this next layer, and then we'll kind of hopefully keep them in a little bit between the next sheet of fly screen, and then we're going to cap that with some sand. Okay, let's see who is crawling around, whoops, in this tank here, or in this little tub. There's a gigantic pill bug if ever I've seen one. Now, who's going to be under this wood? Oh, heaps more. There's heaps of springtails in there. They're all kind of digging through it, aren't they? This is cool to see. Alright, I'm going to just like disturb the whole thing. We're just going to upturn them here. Oh, there's heaps of giant mealworms. What else have we got in here? This is exciting. This is kind of like Christmas Day when you're foraging around. Through a little culture. Yeah, there's a stack of springtails. You know, once you start feeding this tank, they're going to just be thriving in this. This is cool. There's quite a few like little slaters and things. That kit's nice and moist too, so I'm going to have to make sure just to kind of keep this nice and moist in here. Okay, that's cool. That's a cool little culture to get started with. Obviously no earthworms because, you know, they're not going to thrive in a more dry environment. I think Corey's been selective too with the type of slaters that are in here to be able to handle kind of like a little bit more of a drier climate. Obviously, you know, your giant mealworms, these guys are savages. They can handle just about anything you throw at them, and they'll eventually turn into beetles and potentially breed inside of this environment too. You know, almost, I mean, I'm only speculating, depends on if they get smacked by the old, what do you call them? The Egernia Depressa, the spiny tail skinks. But yeah, you know, they could potentially breed in here too. You know, little baby mealworms could be hiding out all down the bottom here. It's going to be an interesting little experiment to say the least. But next we're going to chuck in the next layer of mesh to go on top of here, and then we can start putting the decorative stuff in to try to marry into the from bush to box background that you see here. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really pumped about this. Hey, look at the size of that slater. He's huge. It's like a little bulldozer. I hope you keep your head down, buddy, because those little Egernia Depressa, they'll look at you. Okay, so I've just got the offcut that I cut off that other piece, because obviously, again, smaller enclosure. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I'm just going to kind of fold it just to kind of double it up, potentially just keep that sand on the top of it a bit more. We'll see. It may or may not work. Sand's pretty good at finding its way into things that you don't want it to. But nonetheless, we're going to pop this down in here and try to cap in those bugs pretty nicely. That was a good sized piece of mesh for that. Now I'll get the sand. Ugh, it is a nice big bag of sand. I'll definitely give them that. Oh, it's like a I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera, but that's like a perfect color match for this tank. I love when that goes to plan. Okay, so I'm already seeing that the sand's going straight through the mesh. Obviously it's got nowhere to go once it kind of hits that soil layer regardless. That, especially where it's kind of like the single layer in front, it has gone straight through the mesh. So that's okay. That layer will still help it kind of all hold out a little bit. I can see that one of the cleanup crew members, one of the pill bugs, the slaters, has made it all the way to the top. I am actually going to put more sand on that too. That's a little bit better. So I have used all the sand, which if I was to hazard a guess, it's probably about 10 kilo of sand. So it's quite significant. But that being said, I think it was necessary. That's all good. It's all good. I still rate it though. Like I really rate the idea of doing a bioactive kit that's arid. You know, that's kind of my jam as far as these sorts of things go. They look so crazy though. Look at how shallow the sand is in that tank, and you see it. The big layers we've got here. We've got that drainage. We've got that kind of like nice humidity layer here. Then we've got a sand layer on top. I'm frothing though. This is good fun. I'm having fun. That's the most important part. Okay. This is probably the part that I love the most. What should I start with? Should we put some decorative rocks in? Should we put some pine needles in and pretend there's a bunch of desert oak hanging around here? Got a stack of leaf litter and branches too. Of course, all of this will end up breaking down over time and, you know, be a bit of food for some of these critters that are crawling around in here. I'm going to start with some of the dried twigs and bits and pieces there. And the reason for that is they're kind of like a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger. Yeah, so these guys are probably going to be a bit heavier, kind of hang down the bottom a bit. And I am quite literally Just kind of going to put a smattering of these in this tank, just for a bit of decoration. I don't want to overdo it. We've got other decorations to put in there. Yeah, something like that. I'll give you close-ups and stuff towards the end here, so don't you worry. You will see plenty of nice shots of these, hopefully including the lizards too. Should I go full salt though? Not even looking. I'm definitely going to do pine needles. Even just looking at the background that I've got in there, you can see like all little tiny grasses. All those trees would be dropping all sorts of leaves out there too, especially once it got too hot for them to really hold on to them. And because they're here and you can't not, I am going to have to use some of these, what do you call them? Some of these little granite rocks. I'm assuming they're granite or quartz potentially. They look cool though. The only thing that I could see wrong with using these is the fact that potentially they could be picked up and eaten by animals. But that being said, most animals aren't going to pick them up by mistake. So, you know, I'd say use with caution. Again though, that really marries into the background, and I'll show you why, like before I put anything else in. But in the background, along this sort of line here where these trees are, there's actually like little pebbles and stuff like that in there. So that's kind of really cool to be able to matchy almost perfectly with this background. Okay, so here you go. You can kind of, oh man, the camera's not going to do it justice either. Believe it or not, this always happens. These two colours, that sand and this sand, are like perfectly matched to my eye. So that's kind of disappointing that the camera's showing me that. You see that Slater just crawling around going, where the heck am I? Gone from a little Tupperware container into this. But yeah, you can see that I've used majority of that sand. I think I used all the sand. I used all the soil layer essentially, and I've used a pretty healthy smattering of the decorations. I'd say essentially like the decorative kind of, you know, the botanicals, if you will, the leaf litter, that sort of stuff. I'd say there's actually plenty there to do the 120 centimeter tank. I just think maybe the only downfall I can see, probably need more sand, more dirt, essentially. This layer here, or this, you know, the whole thing, that's about 8 centimeters thick, maybe 10 in spots. So, you know, it's a pretty healthy size. That being said though, like it allows that kind of humidity layer. I wanted to put that all in just to be able to kind of have that decent layer. Of course, the sand being on top will mean that this layer can kind of stay a bit more moist underneath here. I will have to physically water this tank just to make sure that that kind of stays moist, but the top will dry out, especially with, you know, a decent kind of heat bulb above there. Plus I run LEDs and UVBs. It's kind of later in the day now, so a lot of those are off, but that being said, yeah, you can kind of see that it's a pretty decent layer there. The last thing that I'm going to put in here is, well, apart from a water bowl, is I've actually got a bunch of hollow logs and also like twigs and things that I've been using for ages inside of these enclosures. A lot of them did actually belong to the Depressa too. I'm going to pop these inside of this tank just to kind of really dress it up, and then we're going to pop the lizards in here. So one of my favorite logs is this little beauty here. It's got a nice couple of hollows in it, and it'll kind of marry in with this tree that's on the background there, I reckon. So we're going to try to get this in here. Probably just dig it down a little bit into that layer. Don't want to overdo it. Now, I'm not going to do my kind of like fixed bases or anything for this particular enclosure, just because I'd have to dig them down deeper for them to really be able to like stay in there. So yeah, we'll go with that for now. And I just need to put one more little hollow log in there. I'm wondering if I use the one that they're in, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them out. I don't think I will. I think I'm going to use the other grey ones that I've got here, because they're going to marry those trees a little bit better as far as colour goes. And we'll be able to use a couple of other bits of log just to help round everything out. Now I want them to be able to use this hollow log in the actual enclosure as far as like a basking spot that they can kind of hide up and down in. Okay, I might do something like that. It can be a work in progress at the end of the day. I can always tweak things around, but essentially that'll give them a little basking area there that they can kind of hide a way in as well. I might add in some more little branches and things for them to climb up and down in. I know that they'll be able to use this to go up towards that UV globe quite happily. So we'll do that. we'll add a few other bits and pieces. The only other thing I need to pop in there is the actual lizards themselves. So I might see if I can actually poke them out of the log that they're in currently, so we can have a little bit of a sneak peek at them before they disappear into this as well. Okay, I had to give you guys a close-up of these little beauties. I know they're a bit stressed now because I just had to poke them out of a log, so I do feel kind of bad. But there was no way you guys would be able to see these guys before they go into the enclosure. But don't worry, I'll get a whole bunch of B-roll shots and such. But look at these beautiful skinks. You can't tell me that they're not unique. Gorgeous little things. That one at the back there looks pretty chubby. I'm no good at sexing these things. Yeah, I couldn't tell you which one's male, which one's female. Potentially that chubby one's a little male. Or potentially a little girl. Who knows? Beautiful little skinks. I'm going to pop them in their enclosure just so they're not stressing out too much, and we'll see if we can get some nice B-roll of these guys, and then, yeah, hopefully they're not going to smash the hell out of their cleanup crew. Okay, here goes the first one in. I'll pop her on this log. Her or him, sorry. I'm not going to assume your gender because I know nothing, clearly. It's not even running away. Usually by now they would have buggered off and, you know, you probably wouldn't see them, but you can see it definitely looks pretty at home in this little environment here. How cool is that? You brave little skink hanging out. You'll have to get your housemate and pop him in here too, him or her. They look so good in there though. Or that particular one does. Can't speak for both of them because they're not both in. But yeah, how cool. Love it. Okay, so this one wanted to have a little go at me. We'll see if we can just go slip up onto the log. How cool is that, guys? You got that little hollow log over the back there to hang around in. Might just close this door a little bit because these guys can be pretty nifty at trying to bail out. Where are you going? That one's already going into the hollow, I think. Or up the back of the log. That one's gone. Then we got this little brave one hanging out here still. Man, they're such cool skinks. Man, they really do. They really do look at home in this too. Okay, so I doubt we're going to see much more of them today, but at least I got a few little shots there for you. I'm just going to leave you with some parting thoughts on what I think about this kit, and they're going to be passed across to the supplier, of course, and you know, what they decide to do with those thoughts is completely up to them, but it's all a bit of a trial period anyway, so I'm excited to finally get this together for them. It took me a little bit to kind of get the time to pop it together. But what I think about the kit, I love the bioactive culture that comes in it. It does look like there's some more arid species ready for this enclosure. I'll be interested to see how they last long term, mainly because like little things like this, they're savages. Like Egernia in general are savages, and given half a chance they will probably take out most of that cleanup crew. And I think if I did it with my gillons or anything like that, they'd probably be the same, to be honest. Apart from the springtails, but you know, any of the mealworms or the slaters and stuff like that, I think would be fair game. Now, the only other thing that I'd say that was maybe, you know, just for the size kit that it was probably intended for, is it just needed more sand, more soil. That's it. The drainage layer side, I'd say, would be perfect for something like that. The amount of fly screen you get, perfect. The amount of bioculture, probably perfect, to be honest. As I said, I'm not going to be trying plants out in this, but it's more about getting the cleanup crew able to deal with the waste. That's what I want to trial out, and these guys are great at making waste. So that's what I really want to kind of just see what happens. I want to see, you know, if I end up coming in here at night and able to see giant mealworms and stuff crawling around, that sort of gear. This tiny little head there, that's one of them just poking out from that log, having a bit of a look at me. It just caught my eye then. Yeah, so take that for what it's worth. You know, make your own judgments and stuff, of course. Let me know down in the comments what you think you would like to see in an arid kit, or what you think about this kit in particular. I know Corey will probably jump onto the comment section and just be able to at least kind of get all your feedback and stuff like that. I think all in all, as far as like decorative Australian arid kit, you can take it off a shelf at a pet shop type thing, brilliant. You know, not everybody wants to go and collect all the bits and pieces to make something like this, and quite often you end up with so much excess if you were to buy all these products in big amounts and stuff, because you can only get it in big amounts. So I think being able to kind of do something like this and take it just off the shelf for like one tank at home, awesome, 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 because not everybody's silly enough to have the amount of lizards that I have. Alright guys, so present day, I'm just going to interject here for a little minute just to give you my thoughts essentially on what I think of this kit over the course of the last year. It has been a long time using this kit essentially. All in all, everything's still going really well inside of there. I would say that I probably haven't seen any of the giant mealworms for quite a while now, and I dare say that's just because of the species of lizard that I got in there being a really prolific hunter. So I dare say that they've probably just smashed them all off. Occasionally from time to time, if I really water down the enclosure, I do see a little bit of springtail action in the bottom drainage layer. They seem to hang out in there. And as far as like feces and stuff goes, all the kind of like bigger brown bits of lizard feces seems to go missing, but nothing really seems to touch the urate. So as far as that goes, it gets a little bit funny because I have to go through and pick up all the urate, and sometimes I'm kind of probably accidentally picking up the little quartz-like rocks that I essentially might mistake for urate. So those are kind of like, their numbers have become dwindled. But, you know, it's all just, that's just my error more than anything. Again, species choice is everything, right? Like, this could probably work for a lot of arid snakes and stuff if you still had something like those mealworms in there, for example. I don't know, they might get on a little bit longer because obviously the snake's not going to eat them. So, yeah, pros and cons. As far as the product itself, nothing's actually changed as far as quantities go for what Corey's putting in the boxes, so take that with what you will. Maybe you want to kind of just run with it and top up a few things here and there if you need to, like if you feel you need a bit more sand or a bit more soil, something like that. But would I buy this off the shelf? Yeah, I would still buy this off the shelf if I felt like I wanted to. I think comprehensively it's a great little kit to be able to have in your arsenal, to be able to just pick something up, take it home and know you got all the bits and bobs to make a really cool arid enclosure. As you can probably tell too, all the leaf litter has pretty much been destroyed by all the bugs and things that have gone into there, so I've been kind of topping that up where I can. Yeah, it's pretty cool all in all. The Depressa certainly love it, so I think as like an overall little kit, like a purchase, and you know, see it kind of like a year in. But yeah, all in all, I would say this is an awesome little kit to be able to kind of have in your arsenal. So would highly recommend if you want to kind of get a bit active and give it a go. I would love to see people actually trying this with some live plants and stuff in there too, and potentially with a species that's, you know, not going to eat half the bugs that kind of come in the packet. I think that was my personal downfall. But yeah, rate it. So yeah guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to like the video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more reptile related content. Don't forget to put a comment in the section and let Corey know what you think of his kit. And also, if you want to support the channel even further, you can go and join me over on Patreon and Teespring. Grab yourself some merch. Support me, keeping the lights on here. I do greatly appreciate it. You know, YouTube's great, but Patreon supports more than YouTube as well. So, you know, if you want to go that one step further. But at the very least, if you can subscribe to the channel, that is more than enough. So thank you guys for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Take care. I'll see you then.